first, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Hello everyone, this is Fox 12 Now. I'm Greg Nibbler. As always, we appreciate you joining us. We are live streaming here from the Fox 12 Oregon newsroom. That's what you see behind me, and we are on our YouTube channel. We're at KPTV.com, and of course on the Fox 12 Oregon apps. We cover a wide range of topics on the show. Today, though, we are talking about UFOs for this segment, including that recent audio that came out from a couple of pilots talking about something they saw over the Oregon coast, over Western Oregon. To give you the context of that, before I bring our guest on, I'm going to go ahead and play that audio in case you have not heard it, and just to give you that reference point.
Military activity out straight ahead of us.
No, we're not seeing anything. I had another one report at like 30,000 feet in the Eugene area.
We're seeing 3 or 4 targets. You know, they're all altitudes, up and down. It's pretty crazy. There was some at 30 probably. I mean, they're shooting way up. We'd say maybe up to the 50s, it looks like.
They're zipping towards us and then back out towards the ocean. It's red in color, moving at extreme speeds. I don't even know how to describe how fast he's moving. 661 on the clock.
Now, of course, that comes on the heels of some of the other things that have been happening nationally. When we talk about drone sightings in New Jersey, no reason to think that these two things are connected, but happenstance happen to be happening at the same time. But this happened over Oregon, and we're going to talk about this. We're going to get into a little bit more, and we're going to talk about a little bit of the history of UFO sightings here in the Northwest. To do so, I'm joined by James Szubski from Margie's Outdoor Store. And James, thanks for being here with us. I appreciate you having some time to join us. And, you know, for everybody out there, if in case they aren't aware, could you tell them about, you know, your relationship to the paranormal in the Northwest and how Margie's Outdoor Store fits into that, and you as well?
Sure. So Margie was my mother-in-law. She passed away about 3-4 years ago. And so we inherited one of her stores in Bingen, Washington, right across the river from Hood River. And right away, Margie's Outdoor Store is an outdoor adventure store. People started coming in and telling us all kinds of amazing stories about things that they were encountering in the wilderness areas. Sasquatch, UFOs, lots of things like that. And so we put up a big sign in the window that said file paranormal reports here. And we took special effort to make sure that we were a safe place for ordinary people to talk about their extraordinary experiences. And in the past 3 years, we have received more than 375 reports of unusual activity.
And when you talk about the unusual, I mean, I love that. I love that you have a place too where people can go in and do that, and report and just say what they've seen out there. When you talk about unusual activity, how much of that falls into the category of a UAP or something along those lines?
Well, the Gorge, it turns out, is one of the most active paranormal areas in all of North America. And I would say close to a third of our reports, maybe a little bit more, are direct related to phenomena seen in the sky or underwater.
Wow. And underwater as well in the Columbia Gorge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
interesting.
We have had reports of what they call transmedium craft. People have witnessed things very similar to what the pilots witnessed, glowing balls of light traveling above the river and then diving into the river, and they could see the light underwater. They said that was co-witnessed by an Oregon State Trooper.
Wow. Yeah, I was unaware of that. That's really fascinating to know that that's happening on the gorge. Definitely, I've heard about it there in the oceans, different seas, you know, around the world. And talking about what happened there on the Oregon coast and what these pilots saw. We played that audio, but could you maybe fill in a little bit of the gaps there, and as far as what exactly was going on and maybe what you think was going on?
Sure. So it was December 8th. A number of pilots reported to the tower that they were seeing odd lights with exotic maneuverability seen off the Oregon coast. And they seemed to be traveling at extreme speeds, doing crazy corkscrew type maneuvers. And they were able to see it on their collision avoidance systems in the aircraft. The tower wasn't seeing the same things on their radar scopes. And I think there was at least 3 different aircraft which spotted it. And they all reported in the same relative area. So it's really exciting. For one thing, one of the biggest problems with this phenomenon is there's a great deal of stigma associated with reporting it. And I'm very encouraged to hear that the tower and the pilots are openly talking about them as UFOs. And I think that helps all of us understand our world better when we remove the stigma and report the phenomenon as it's observed.
That does seem to be something that has changed quite a bit over the last, I would say, several years, but particularly here over the last couple of years, where more and more people are talking about this. There was a hearing, we covered that here in Congress, just talking about UAPs and trying to get more information out. So with this more information, do you think this leads more credence to the fact that, you know, this is a UAP, or could this be a drone? Could this be something that's a satellite reflection of the sun, something more easily explained?
Well, the flight characteristics that the pilots were reporting in real time indicate that it was not a drone. They were seen to be traveling upwards of 60,000 feet, which is, there's no drone that we have that does that effectively. Anyone, especially a civilian type of drone. And during that recording, they specifically asked if there was military activity in the area. They said there was not. Also, some of the corkscrew maneuvers and the changing of direction quickly indicate that it's probably not some type of conventional aircraft. And so what it is really the big question. And that's a question we ask ourselves all the time at Margie's Outdoor Store.
Yeah, especially with all of those reports that you see. So, you know, when we talk about this happening over Oregon, something like this, as far as, you know, we've been involved with the ocean like this and these pilots seeing that, you mentioned before previously, maybe people didn't talk about it as much because of the stigma. How often have things like that been cited that you've seen or heard about over the Oregon coast?
Well, my area of focus is really the Columbia River Gorge area. That's where my stores are. We hear about this stuff all the time. Washington State is the #1 state in the country for UFO sightings per capita. So that means, you know, divided by the number of people who live here. And that extends, and Oregon is a top contender as well. So the Pacific Northwest has been a part of the UFO story from the very beginning. America's love affair with flying saucers began in 1947. There was a private pilot named Kenneth Arnold. He was flying from Chehalis over to Yakima in a small private plane. And in June of 1947, he observed 9 craft flying at a very high rate of speed, flying from approximately the Mount Rainier area directly towards the Mount Adams area. And so this got picked up by the national media, and America's love affair with flying saucers began. And then a month later, the Roswell crash occurred. And ever since then, America's been talking about UFOs like we are today.
And yeah, talking about that rich history there in the Northwest of those kinds of sightings. Why do you think that is? What is it about the Northwest that lends itself to that?
You know, it's a great question. UFO activity is often reported around mountains, and of course, we've got the Cascade Mountain Range here. And in fact, Mount Adams is an incredible hotspot. We receive numerous reports of UFOs around Mount Adams frequently. And recently, we have received reports of aircraft that are in the U.S. military's inventory, like C-130s and Chinook helicopters, Black Hawk helicopters, pursuing some of these lights around Mount Adams. And again, these are the things that I reported. I don't have firsthand verification of that, but we get so many reports like that. Some locals say that it's kind of boring to them now because they see it so frequently.
Wow, and that's around Mount Adams, a lot of those?
Correct. But, you know, there is a very interesting piece of history and evidence related to UFOs, and that has to do with the Hanford nuclear site, which is, you know, just upriver here. So Hanford was a part of the Manhattan Project, and it went online September of 1944, and in January of 1945, pilots were scrambled from the Pasco Air Base to intercept a glowing red object, very similar to the one described in these radio reports, that was hovering over the nuclear reactor. Now, at this time, it was completely top secret. Even Vice President Truman didn't know that there was a nuclear reactor there. No one knew. And the pilots certainly didn't know. And they pursued a orange glowing orb above the reactor until it ascended outside of their operational range, and they couldn't chase it any further. And so that happened 2 years before the Kenneth Arnold sighting. And then in July of that same year, 1945, same month as the Trinity test, which was the first atomic detonation by mankind in history, F-6F Hellcat fighter planes were also scrambled out of Pasco, again to chase UFOs over the Hanford nuclear site. And they reported an object that was the size of 3 aircraft carriers side by side. And so this is a part of the history, again, reported by military pilots. the logs were scrubbed. And so while the pilots have clear memory of it, the official military records have deleted it. So it's a interesting situation. And there have been a congressional testimony which talked about how UFOs have been seen around our nuclear sites. And that may have something to do with why we're seeing them here in the Pacific Northwest.
That certainly adds to that, like you were talking about, the historical lore and the historical sightings of that here in the Northwest. Well, getting back to the pilots and what they saw, what do you think, do you have an opinion on what you think it was?
It's a big mystery, right? And because they are exhibiting highly exotic maneuverability characteristics, including things like being able to disappear or make right-angle turns at high speed. These are things that are not following the laws of physics as we currently understand them. And so it seems that there may be some, well, it sounds weird to say, but something to do with extra-dimensional activity. And the reason why I say that is that when you think about, when scientists talk about how a four-dimensional object would interact with three-dimensional space, a lot of the same flight characteristics that we talk about are very possible. And so rather than coming from someplace far away in outer space, it may be something that's been here all along, just undetectable to human perception because of its exotic nature. And while that sounds like tinfoil hat territory, and I completely recognize that, the Department of Energy funds many experiments on high energy physics that talk about pocket dimensions and alternate realities. And so these are things that are being explored by our government and by some of the smartest people in our scientific community. And again, I think it's very exciting that we're reducing the stigma to reporting it, because that's how you get, it's that raw data, it's the field reports from citizens that really bring us greater clarity about what's happening in our world.
I completely agree. Yeah, removing that stigma, that data, combined with science and studying this and looking into all those different possibilities. I mean, it's fascinating stuff regardless. I mean, and this happened. I mean, these are reputable pilots who reported seeing this, so we'll see where it goes. And if it continues to happen, there's a lot of things going on in the world right now as far as sightings and different kinds of things like that. So, it's interesting. It's all really interesting to find out, to just talk about it and see what people think. And hopefully we'll get some more of that data, get some more information.
Well, I would absolutely encourage anyone who has a sighting in the Portland metro area or in the Columbia River Gorge, please file a paranormal report at margiesoutdoorstore.com. You can just click on the paranormal tab and you can get right there. But as we gather this data, we're beginning to do some more serious investigations of them. We had a phenomenon over Mosier on November 6th with 3 photographs taken. Really compelling stuff, clearly not an aircraft. Still not sure what that is. But the more data that we have, you will know that if you report it at Margie's, we're going to treat you with dignity and respect.
Love it. Well, James, thank you very much for having some time to talk to us. I really appreciate it. I go up camping a lot in Mount Adams, and I need to be paying more attention to what's going on in the sky. Just really appreciate you having time and having this conversation with me.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You bet. And for everybody watching, we are live here from the Fox 12 Oregon newsroom. This show, Fox 12 Now, we get to have longer discussions. We can talk about a lot of things here with a little bit less restraints because it is live streaming. So we have a little bit more time to actually talk about these things. You can check out all of our episodes, the Fox 12 Oregon YouTube channel, KPTV.com, the Fox 12 Oregon apps. I'm going to be back throughout the afternoon with lots of other segments. So if you're watching live, I will talk to you at 1:30 p.m. Otherwise, feel free to check out all of those segments at those places I just mentioned. Thanks for joining us. I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now.